will open up for a Q&A from the audience. So if you can wait until after everyone has said their piece. We're going to give about 5 minutes. We're not going to time you because this has been so crazy anyway, but you normally don't take that long. At least, Rory, I know you do. Okay, so we have Rory Diamond, who is our representative for the beaches on the City of Jacksonville City Council. We have Matt Carlucci, Nick Howland, Ron Salem, and Chris Miller. Matt, do you want to say anything? I know you started in the foyer, but...
I will just repeat, I love being here. Beaches Watch is a template of what civic organizations should be. I have some agendas coming up, but tonight, my agenda is your agenda. And I want to hear from the people. I don't want to take up a lot of time talking. I could, but I'm not going to, as my colleagues well know. But, so I will pass it along to Councilmember Howland. I do want to thank Councilmember Salem and my council lay for getting the library.
I will let Ron Salem go for me since he started when we were outside, so we can finish.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As I was started to say outside, I'm the Group 2 at large, so I am the at-large person that represents the beaches. And as most of you probably know, I live in Arlington, and this seat is kind of switched back and forth between an Arlington person and a beaches person. Elaine Brown had this seat originally quite a few years ago. John Crescimini, who was before me, was an Arlington person as well. So, and I'm term limited, so there'll be someone new coming in 27. I just wanted to mention a few things that I'm working on, just to throw out there. Number one, I just introduced some legislation for the Sulzbacher Center. As some of you might know, there was a shooting on the premises of the Sulzbacher Center. A guy walked in and pulled out a gun and shot actually someone in the rest stop there, and pandemonium broke out, and they at that time just had a regular security guard, and now I've provided through my colleagues here's help some money for them to get a police officer on the premises at least through the end of September, and then they'll have to find the dollars themselves to continue that service. I've introduced some legislation recently. I think most of you have heard of this land swap that's going on downtown, potentially to help the University of Florida. They need one more piece of property for their campus that's in the La Villa area. The developer that owns it would like to swap that piece of property for some riverfront property. I have offered an alternative for the city just to buy that piece of property and not go with the land swap. You'll hear more about that as the process continues. There's some appraisals of property that are occurring right now, so we can try to figure out what's the best way forward, and my colleagues and I'm sure we'll figure out the best way. The last thing I'll mention is we are working, and I'm kind of taking the lead on a DOGE process at City Hall. I have working with our auditors. This will be an internal process, as I think we have a notice meeting on Tuesday to bring the council members up to speed on what's going on, but I believe we can have an internal process led by our council auditor, who is pulling together a plan for us to use to try to look at spending at City Hall. As most of you might know, we are looking at some very difficult times over the next 2 or 3 years. We're looking at $70 to $100 million deficits in our budget, and we've got to somehow make that up. And whether it's through additional revenue or whether it's through cuts in our spending. So I think that process can be very helpful in trying to identify some areas where we can reduce spending. So I will stop there just to keep the process moving and turn it over to Councilmember Howland.
All right, thank you, Ron. My name is Nick Howland. I'm an at-large Group 3 City Councilman, which I think Ron was talking about a little bit, but there's 19 City Council people. 14 represent districts in the city. Rory is District 13, which is the beaches. And of those, aside from those 14, 5 represent the entire county. I live over in the Intercoastal West area, so Jack's Golf at the corner of Beach and Hodges. Before I give a little bit of background about myself, I wanted to address the land swap issue that Ron just brought up. What he was talking about is when the UF campus is moving into potentially the La Villa area, there's a key piece of property. It's like 4 or 5 city blocks in La Villa, and the city needs to acquire that property to give to UF as part of the deal. And for the current owner, there was an offer of a pretty nice piece of property on the riverfront in return for that La Villa. But I heard a rumor that actually the first offer was a 2-foot by 2-foot square of Atlantic Beach property for that. And that didn't fly, so now it's
local jokes. Very nice.
there you go. That was a big setup just for that joke. So I ran for office about 3 years ago. And I did a lot of knocking in the beaches. I have a pretty heavy beaches background. My wife works at Berkshire Hathaway in Atlantic Beach, and my kids went to Jacksonville Beach Elementary. So at one point, living in Jack's Golf, my whole life revolved around crossing the ditch, spending time in the beaches, and then coming back. Now, one's in college, one's in high school, so we spend less time going east, more time going west. But when I ran on 3 principles that were part of my campaign that still are how I operate in City Council today, and that is public safety, jobs, and infrastructure. Those are my focus areas. So every time I vote, I look at those 3 filters to make sure that I'm voting the right way. And one thing I'm really proud to say, in the last 3 years, we kind of put to bed what was raging not only in Jacksonville but across the country about, should we defund the police or do we put more officers on the streets? And we put that argument to bed several years ago, and we've now fully sourced our JSO and our beaches police departments, and we're seeing a significant reduction in crime. That's a big victory for the city of Jacksonville. As far as jobs and infrastructure, one of my proudest pieces of legislation that I've introduced is I've worked with a lot of folks in the beaches, including Mitch Reeves and I were both at Armor Holdings for a while. I have come up through manufacturing and distribution in the defense and law enforcement space. And a lot of the old Armor Holdings, if people know the business, a lot of the folks lived around the beaches. But one thing that I think we, having run businesses here for 18 years, one of the things that I think we needed to do better was attract more manufacturing and logistics jobs. We always were looking at big fintech information systems, so I deep dove, as soon as I was elected, into looking at the city's public investment plan, and we've made a few changes. There used to be a situation where you could not get an incentive to move here if you were a company if you didn't pay the minimum state wage, which takes into account wages down in South Florida, takes into account wages in Tampa. And so we couldn't give incentives to manufacturers and distributors to move to Jacksonville, which meant that wonderful $55,000 a year, $50,000 a year jobs that sustain families were not as prevalent as they could be. We changed the public incentive plan specifically to address that, to bring manufacturing and logistics jobs here. And we did that by saying if you were bringing jobs here, moving here below that state average wage, we could still you would qualify for incentive programs if you made a significant capital investment, $15 million or more, or if you were moving into an economically distressed area. So basically, we are creating an incentive plan to bring businesses to places where the jobs were needed most, or to bring capital-intensive businesses that can generate tax revenue for the city of Jacksonville. And as long as we have the money and the times are good to incentivize businesses, sometimes we need to do that to relocate here or to grow here. I think that time is starting to run out because of the financial headwinds we face, but we have in the last 3 years been able to attract, with the changes to that program, 1,400 jobs according to the Office of Economic Development. So when I say public safety, jobs, infrastructure, my third is infrastructure, and we need to invest in every neighborhood. We know it here in Penman. We need to widen that road and improve that road. We know it all over the city with potholes, improving our parks, improving our downtown. Infrastructure investment is a critical function of government. It'll always be a focus of mine. So public safety, jobs, infrastructure, that's my focus running for office. That's my focus in office, and I'll leave it at that.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Miller. I'm the At-Large Group 5 representative on the council, and as was described, the at-large folks all represent all of Jacksonville. So when I ran for this office, and actually, I'll say it, I might have said it before, but Rory was one of the folks who pushed this old Army officer to run for office instead of sitting on the sidelines, enjoying life with my wife and my other job working at the federal level. And when they pushed me to run for this position, and the position was an at-large seat on City Council, as I said, I really, during the campaign, and I believe I continue to try to focus on the whole city and not just one area, because that's what the district folks do. And so I've tried to get everywhere I can, and I continue to try to do that and form those relationships that are important for me to have a better understanding of what the concerns are and what the needs are of our whole city. And to that point, I've worked very well with the 3 beaches mayors. I must say I need to set up an appointment with your newest mayor because I haven't had time with her yet. And so I want to do that so that we can sit down and get to know each other and know her perspective on the way forward and how that can intersect with what we do at the city level. But the other 2, I've heard from them on a regular basis, text, phone calls. They make sure I know the beach's perspectives on the things that we're considering. And I pay attention to what Rory's focused on City Council, so I can know what ways I can back the beaches through the things that he's advocating for. My top priorities are similar to what Nick's are. Number 1, by and large, just so far ahead of everything else is public safety. If you don't have a feeling that you're going to be taken care of, that you're protected, that you're going to be responded to in an emergency in an efficient way, then what else really matters at that point? So you'll see me at all the crime walks with the sheriff and his team. I go on every one of them that I'm able to go, and that also helps me learn the communities. But I'm also going to advocate for them, and I make no apologies for that, of how fully committed I am to our law enforcement officers, their efforts, and also to our firefighters, because we have to get all that right. And to that end, I'm not going to talk in detail about it, but regardless of what you may hear from anybody, we're going to need to soon refocus, and I think Councilman Salem is getting our focus back up, addressing this again. We had some good momentum and we lost it on addressing the need for a new jail complex for our city. If you take one tour of our existing jail, you will no longer question why we need that. And so that's one thing we have to address for both those who are being held there and also for our staff members who have those conditions that they have to go to work in every day, which aren't acceptable. You have things like flooding of sewer water almost on a daily basis coming down the different floors onto the admin computers and seats. Unacceptable. And we've applied $9 million to address some of the short-term needs, but we have long-term infrastructure needs. We need a new facility, and it needs to be in a new location where we can have more mental health and other things like that in a campus-style setting. So I'll leave that one there, but that's one area I'm really concerned about. Obviously, homelessness is another area. I keep hearing we have a city plan, but every time I ask for that city plan, it's not really a plan. And so we have a lot of work to do there, and I'm trying to encourage more work in that area, a more comprehensive citywide plan in that regard. And we've done some things to meet state requirements, and I think there's some good effort going there, and we've supported that with financing from City Council. But we need a long-term plan to address homelessness, to get everyone through a comprehensive approach that will hopefully get all of those on the streets into a thriving, self-sustaining state for themselves and their families in some cases. So that's another area where I'm paying a lot of attention to and trying to help us get to a better place there. And another area I've focused on, and we have a template program running in Springfield right now, is trying to come up with a template for the whole city, especially for those areas that need a lot of loving. A comprehensive approach to not only cleaning up the areas, but also to keeping them there. And not a one-off thing. We do one cleanup in a 6-month period, and we feel good about it, and everybody's got a t-shirt, but then 3 weeks later, if nobody's maintaining it, what's it gonna look like? And so that sponsorship, Adopt a Block is what we're calling it. We have Swisher, we have other companies, small businesses, churches, nonprofits. They're adopting streets and blocks, and they're committing in writing to keeping them clean on a weekly basis, augmented by the city's efforts. And so I just want to give you a little taste of what that is all about. There's a lot more on cleaning alleyways, and bike racks, and painting crosswalks and other things to make it better, pressure washing. But I just wanted to give you a feel for that's something you'll be seeing more of. And my colleagues, I'm thankful that they've supported these efforts as they go through council. But with that, I'm gonna to get more in line with what Matt was saying, we want to hear from you. And so we want to leave this open. You know, I think Rory's probably going to make some comments, but then we want to leave this open to hear from you so we understand what's important to you all. So again, pleasure to be with you all tonight again, and thank you very much.
That was awesome, Chris. Don't forget, Chris actually launched his campaign in Jax Beach for his citywide office. We did it at
Angie Subs.
Angie Subs. It was great, and he talked even longer there. I'm telling you. So first of all, thank you. We have Beaches Watch. I love Beaches Watch. There are so few organizations. I was just telling Matt about this. Civic organizations in Jacksonville. We actually get to talk to people about what's going on. I get my own forum every year with Beaches Watch, and we've got 4 at-large city council people here. So I want you to have as many chances to ask them and tell them what matters to the beaches. But before you do, let me say this. These 4 gentlemen have been awesome for me as a city councilman. They have been incredible. There has not been a single time when I've asked them for support on council for something at the beaches that they said no. Every single time. We've got all the support we need. During COVID, when we had unique issues, when we needed to get vaccines out here, when we needed to get testing out here, when we needed special stuff for the beaches alone, because it's so far to go all the way to Arlington, all the way to downtown, all of them supported those efforts 100%. And the nonprofits out here at the beaches were suffering, and people were losing their homes because we had so many people working in the service industry, the beaches, and COVID was making their life almost impossible. These guys all supported. And so we got more from COJ during that time, during COVID, than I think any time of someone's been representing the beaches, and very grateful for that support because it was, people just think people have so much money at the beach. They think we're the richest area in the city. By the way, they're right. We pay the most taxes of any other district, and we get the least back. But that was a moment where we really needed the most help because, and it's one of my jobs to remind you guys, that there's people at the beaches who need things. We have poor people at the beaches. We have kids who need special after school programs at the beaches. We've got potholes and trash and homeless issues just like everywhere else. And so we need to get the same love from the city of Jacksonville as the rest of the city does. But I am serious. These guys have been incredible to work with, and really grateful that Beaches Watch brought them all here because now it's your chance to tell them what we need, and any backup you can give me that we need as much cash as humanly possible spent at the beach, I appreciate it. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we'll start with the Q&A portion of the meeting. Before you start, a few ground rules here. Please keep your questions concise, to the point. We don't need any kind of dissertation before you ask the question. If it's to the entire panel, you can address that. If it's to a specific councilman, you can address it to that particular councilman. So I will be roaming with the mic so everyone can hear the question. So please speak it to the mic, and we'll get started. So I think Commissioner Kelly.
Hi, Candace Kelly, Commissioner of Atlantic Beach. I would like to know the Jaguar deal, when they cut out community development funds, in what way are any of those funds headed toward the beaches? That's a very negative head shake, Mr. Brown.
Million.
Next district. Ron knows the deal the best.
Well, there's some countywide dollars in that will be spread out all over the community, and then there's $1 million per district councilman. So Rory will get $1 million for the beaches area. The at-large councilman get nothing. We get zero in that deal. So, and that kicks in the next year. So I know the $1 million for the individual council members, I think kicks in the 25-26 year. So you should start seeing some activity there.
And we freed it up so it can be used for almost anything.
Yes. Yeah, the strings on those dollars are pretty loose in terms of how the district councilman can use that, whether it's in parks, programs, or whatever he decides to come to the council, because it all has to be reappropriated.
Councilman Carlucci, I think, did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say on the community benefits agreement that a lot of that's still being fleshed out. And I don't want the beaches to feel like they've been cut out because they have not. Mayor Deegan lives at the beaches. I think she's doing an outstanding job. That's just my opinion. And I respect all my colleagues here, but I have to say that the community benefits was mostly to go towards a lot of the east side, where the stadium is going, to try to lift up that area while the stadium is lifting up newer areas. So that area can stay economically viable in jobs and to help the people that live there. So it's the oldest historic part of Jacksonville is the east side. The second thing is the community benefits is going to have money for all of Jacksonville, other than what's going to the east side. So I don't want you to walk out of here thinking that the beaches have been cut out, because you haven't. And the best thing you can do is contact your council members at large, Commissioner, and other folks here, and let us know what's needed. And I will deliver that information, at least on my part, to the mayor's office. But I know the mayor wants to make sure there's a fair distribution. And I just felt like that should be said. Thank you.
No, you got it.
Okay, so Matt and I are friends on council, but we probably disagree the most on certain things. I think the community benefits agreement is terrible for Jackson, and I don't think it's going to happen, generally speaking. Right now, we've got the Howland Amendment, which says we're not going to do it unless we've got enough money to do it. We don't, because we've spent so much money other places. We don't have the money for it, so it's probably not going to happen. We had to get a crowbar to get $1 million for the other districts, because, and I'm not going to make this about Mayor Deegan, but there was an obsession with spending as much money downtown. And this is a problem with Jacksonville, right? There's been this obsession with dumping everybody else's money downtown and not enough money in the neighborhoods, whether it was Mandarin or South Side or the North Side or the West Side or the beaches. We get left out over and over and over again. And right now, that is the current trajectory for the CBA. Spend as much money downtown, $150 million up front, downtown. And if we get $1 million, I think it's a miracle that we got that, because this is what happens in the beaches. We pay the bill, we don't get any of the parking.
Yeah. Rory mentioned something called the protection agreement, or protection amendment that we put on the CBA. I think when the community benefits agreement was, loosely speaking, if you don't value the time of money, or the time value of money, was $150 million commitment from the city, matched by $150 million commitment from the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was the largest community benefits agreement that's been associated with the stadium deal in the United States. And what was important about it is, if the city is going to commit $150 million over a 10 or 15-year period, whatever was contemplated, that is committing discretionary dollars in the future. And anyone who knows about government budgeting knows that, you've got to use your ad valorem property tax collections on the vital city services first, right? So public safety, infrastructure, vital city services, and things like that. If you have anything left over, that's when you can do interesting things like incentivize companies to come, or do public service grants that are kind of outside the core role of city government. And we've been in a good way the last 7-8 years. We've had property tax collections and additional money where we can do some of these discretionary investments to benefit our city. The community benefits agreement, basically saying $150 million over 10 years, is basically saying all of our discretionary money is going to go to these handful of things. So it was concerning to me. I agreed with that those were all good projects, and we amended them to probably a better set of projects. But it was concerning to me that we would obligate the city on discretionary funding years hence. So we did create an amendment, we called it the Protection Amendment, that basically says if there is, our future tax revenues do not exceed our current level of expenses at a inflation CPI, and there's no discretionary funding left, we don't have to make that year's community benefits agreement investment. So what it's doing is basically saying, all right, we're not hampering taxpayers to automatically trigger some kind of future revenue tax increase or something like that. We're basically only doing that spend of discretionary money if we have the money to do it. So the community benefit agreement is restricted by that. If we have good years of property tax collections and we need our vital services, we'll be able to make those investments in the future. If we don't, we don't have to. That was an important thing to add, so we didn't obligate the city to spend if they didn't have the money in the future. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Question?
Good evening. I'm going to get in trouble because I'm not going to ask you a question. I want to make a public thank you to you guys. In 2019, I approached Councilman Matt Carlucci as the CEO of Florida Youth Maritime Training, and he encouraged me to do what we do. In 2020, Councilman Ron Salem stepped in while at meetings for the Mayport Waterfront Partnership and increased the support. And in 2023, Councilman Rory stepped forth and he increased support again. Since 2019, these guys have been responsible for getting over 492 people employed. These 492 people are bringing in about $50 million into the Jacksonville economy. And it's because these guys had the courage to do this. And again, not a question, I just wanted to say thank you because I've never had the chance to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a nice change, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, those are underprivileged kids from all over Jacksonville who may not have other opportunities. That's a pretty awesome program.
Yeah, you guys are responsible for 19 kids aging out of the foster care system who are now making over $50,000 a year.
Thank you to you.
And Mitch is about to take us into
Yeah, he took your thunder. We'll be real quick. As chairman of the Mayport Waterfront, I appreciate it's coming before you on finance. I know on the 11th you're going to be the first reading, and on the 25th is the final reading to give us another grant to help the Mayport community, help it grow. Those people need a growth. I want to thank you for that, and just make sure you vote for that. Now we'll switch hats real quick. I have a question to you, because I've reached out to several of you, and I've asked this question. And I don't expect you to answer it now if you don't want to. But I've asked you this question, individually some. We have county services, sheriffs, courts, everything. Do you consider the fire department a county fire department? And if so, and if it's unclear, are any of you willing to put a bill before the council to make sure that we get that out, that it is a county service?
I think it's just been in the last couple of years where the fire department is now serving the entire county. I think there were a couple of beach communities that just came on in the last couple of years or so. So clearly I view it as a county service. I know they're at the airport, they have everything now, and I think that's a wise thing, because I know there were times where there were fires and they were coming across the ditch to help out, and it was just not a good situation. So I think we're the safest place we can be, where our fire department is serving the entire county, and I think we should keep it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's a great question, and I always know these kind of questions come from the Beaches community. The fire department should be countywide, and I do believe they will serve countywide when need be. But we have an interlocal agreement with the Beaches, and we can't forget Baldwin. You know, Baldwin is a city on the other side of the county, and they're a very important part of our community and of our culture in Jacksonville. So, as interlocal agreements reopen for negotiations, that's when you might see more fire protection because those are negotiated out. But I do know this, the fire department and rescue, particularly rescue, will service the beaches because I have to tell you, they handled by helping my wife at one point. It wasn't because I was a council member, but they did. They came out. There was one other thing I want to say, but you know, when you get older, you kind of, it slips out of there somehow. But that is a great question. And there are other issues that have to do with the beaches and the equity that we have for the property taxes. One thing I did want to say, just in case, but we raised our garbage fee in Jacksonville because that was a fair thing to do for the beaches, and it was an accounting thing to do for Jacksonville residents. It wasn't easy. But I also want to say this. With the garbage fee bill that increased our garbage fees, we also introduced a bill that provides assistance to those who are unfortunate and maybe can't afford the increase. And I want you to know that it was my bill, and I'm not trying to pin a rose on my lapel, but I made damn sure, excuse my French, the beaches in Baldwin were included in that. Because it's a county-wide problem, and we need to help everybody that's in the entire city of Jacksonville. So I just want to throw that out there real quick, and my colleagues may have anything else they want to say.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Robin Danahauer, and I live in Jacksonville Beach. I've owned a condominium since 1995. My problem is I have become handicapped, and the majority of the handicapped parking spaces that I used to park in are now for regular parking. I don't like that. And the handicapped spaces that you do have are nowhere near where you want to go. They're headed towards a bar, or I want to go to this weekend. There's a festival coming up. There's no handicapped places to park except for one, behind casual bathing suits or whatever it is. And that's it. The rest, gone. If they want to make money, why don't you open up the parking year-round instead of just the summer? And taking away handicapped parking spaces is against my civil right, or liberties, whatever it is. I've looked up on the internet to see what it is about handicapped parking. Well, a parking lot with 100 spaces in it is only legally supposed to have 3. I'm like, come on. I'm not liking it at all.
It's not you.
And I wish you guys would do something about it.
Do you mean at Jack's Beach?
It's not fair.
Jack's Beach or over the ditch?
Jacksonville Beach.
Yeah.
Um, Hold on just a second.
Yeah, of course.
The other thing I have to say is, I live on the 2nd floor of my condo, 16 feet off the ground. Something has to be done about the pollution. Bad pollution. My plants on my deck and my windowsills, because I open up during springtime, black soot on my plants. It's in the exhaust from people's cars.
Fully corrected. So as far as Jack's Beach parking, get your email or your cell. We talked to Mayor Chris Hoffman, the city of Jacksonville Beach.
I can't hear you.
So the mayor of Jack's Beach is in charge, and the city of Jacksonville Beach is in charge of handicap parking for their city. We have no control over that. The city of Jacksonville doesn't. But I promise you, we can go talk with Chris Hoffman. She's a wonderful mayor of Jacksonville Beach. I know she cares about these things, and we can see if there's, oh my goodness, and Miss Sandy is right there, the city councilwoman from Jackson Beach. I'm sorry, Miss Sandy.
Let me say this. I did not know what you're saying about tonight. My first 8 years on the council, I was deeply involved in handicap issues, disability, transportation was way underfunded, disability parking was not like it should have been, and I dove into those very deeply. Councilman Diamond is right, it is a city of Jacksonville Beach or Neptune or whichever beach that you're in, but he's unlike us, we're at large. So I would say that to your commissioners that are here, council members, I would be happy to join hands because I have a good bit of experience with this, and if there's anything we can do to assist the beach community with this, I think that all the council members up here who are at large would be happy to try to help. And I appreciate you bringing it up because a lot of people don't know how much of the economy is driven by folks who are disabled, but they have money to spend, they have places that they want to go, but they have to have the means to get there. And then when they get there, they have to have a place to park. And I learned this a long time ago, so I appreciate your saying it. Like I said, my agenda is y'all's agenda tonight. So if I can help any of the commissioners, council members, I'd be happy to do that, lend whatever insight that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy?
I just want to add real quick, I'll be happy to talk to you after the meeting, but I do want to add that we just approved a new parking lot that we're going to be putting in the downtown area near the pier that's going to have more handicap parking in it. So I'll talk to you about it after the meeting. So we definitely are doing something about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about this? When the summer comes and they see the handicap parking spaces, here pulls in a car with 20 million people in it. They all fall out, they put the handicap sticker in it, and not one of them is handicapped. They get it from grandma. Well, it's not the car that's registered to that placard, it's your driver's license. And if the police could be maybe one cop, the girls go around and check to make sure they've paid to park. If they could be there when the people pull in, let me check your placard against your driver's license. And that would end that illegal parking, a $250 fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Stotts here. I just want to thank Matt Carlucci for always serving with honesty, integrity, and compassion. My question here is about a couple of bills that Mr. Diamond has introduced, one of which, and correct me where I'm wrong because I'm trying to get clarity on this, one of them is asking for $75,000 of taxpayer funds so the police can do on-the-spot fingerprinting. And then the second bill, ironically, is to prevent tax dollars from going towards illegal immigrants. It mentions residents of public housing and children who receive services from Kids Hope Alliance. I'm not sure how these folks are going to be targeted, and I hope you can tell me what the plan is more specifically before we spend this kind of money, and also clarify the conditions under which children might be either investigated, detained, etc. Are we going to be carrying papers around? What kind of ID do children need? I mean, immigrants are not criminals. I'd just like to say that. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate your question. And certainly immigration is a hot issue. You know, in November, President Trump won. He won Duval County. He campaigned on stopping illegal immigration into America. He campaigned on stopping American taxpayer dollars going to people who were in the country illegally. And Jacksonville voted for that. Let's be clear. Jacksonville said, yes, we want that. And so Kevin Carrico is one of our council colleagues. He represents the South Side. He introduced the first bill you mentioned, which would have a fingerprint scanning, appropriation for the sheriff. In addition to that, he also created a new law that makes it essentially against the law on a local level to be in the county illegally. There's a state law now for that, and of course there's federal law for that. So that was his bill. It was just coincidence and timing that we introduced similar bills at the same time. My bill simply said, Mayor Deegan, you need to provide us with an accounting of how we're spending money on people who are in the county illegally. Because I think the people of Jacksonville, if they're spending money on housing, if they're spending money on homelessness, if they're spending money on these things, they want to spend it for people who are from here and for people who are going to be staying here. And I think that's what people voted for. That's what my bill does.
Can I say one? I'm going to say this is a great risk, but I'm going to tell you what I truly believe. And I've come to know this because over the last 6 months with the immigration rhetoric that's going on, I try to dig to the deep problem. Our family just had some work done at our house. We had an insurance claim, and I'm an insurance agent, but most of my claims were never covered. But this one was. The company that came out had people from Venezuela working. Their skill, their craftsmanship, just like it never happened, what happened to our house. Now, I think we all agree that legal immigration is better than illegal immigration. But if we set aside that just for a second and put our heart in a spot where we can look with a broader view, I talked to a couple of the workers at my house. They're from Venezuela. And I said, look, I don't know whether you're legal or, I opened up a conversation with them where they felt comfortable. And I said, what happens if you go back to Venezuela? And why did you leave? Well, they left because they're fighting for their families, for freedom. It's a life and death issue a lot of times. And he also said, Mr. Carlucci, if I go back to Venezuela, they'll put me in prison because I left Venezuela to come to America. Now, this is not an easy ABC 1, 2, 3 issue. And while laws are good and so forth, we got to put a little heart in it. The older I get, I'm just going to tell you, the older I get, the more empathy I have for those who are struggling to try to make a living for their families, for their children, and for their future. And that may not be a popular thing to say because there's such a wave of anti-immigrant, but it's more than that. And I got to tell you, if I was in a country where my family was at risk, and my 2 children, when they were younger, and I wanted to forge a future, I might be willing to take that risk to come to another country, particularly America, that we all are so lucky to live here. So my answer in the long haul, which I don't know will ever happen, probably not in the next 4 years, we have to have a path to citizenship. Make it as tough as you want to make it. I think I got 50% of the crowd. but we have to have a heart, and we've got to open our arms to people. Are there immigrants here that cause crime? Yes. But you know what? There's a lot of Americans that cause a lot more crime. So I look at this issue, and I'll make my decisions because I know all my colleagues are well-intended. Everyone are well-intended with what they believe. I just happen to sometimes be in the minority. But my being in the minority is backed up by nearly 20 years of service in working with people of our beloved great city of Jacksonville. And I just had to say that. I hope that's okay. Thank you.
Just a question. Oh, yes, just a question, I promise. I'm Patty Zuri. Yes, I'm from here. Yes, I'm a relative of Tommy's. Yes, I'm a relative of Donna's.
Speak into the mic.
That done. You talk about infrastructure, and you talk about public safety. Where does it come when it comes to our roadways? We've had 14 students, last I heard, this year, hit by cars. 3 of them have died. We've had 24 accidents since January in automobiles, 6 of them motorcycles, fatalities. We have had a huge uptick in development without transportation infrastructure. I've lived in New England most of my life, most of my adult life. I've traveled in Europe many times in the last, because I have grandchildren in Europe and we have a motorcycle. So I go all around those roundabouts in Italy and Germany, where people, it takes 4 years to get a driver's license in Germany. There are nothing but scooters and small cars and people in Italy. So they look for us, but they don't look for us here because they don't. And we're working on expanding Penman Road and a roundabout in a pedestrian area that I've been fighting for many years with COJ. Rory's very aware of this, with FDOT also. And I'm just really concerned. If you really want to protect us by police enforcement of crosswalk laws, school trainings of how to use crosswalks, because our city is one of the most dangerous in the country. Thank you very much. I don't need any comment. I just want to say, please help me get police enforcement. I've been trying for years. Better education in our schools for driver's ed. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carolyn Zisser. I live in Atlantic Beach. I'm also an attorney. I'm speaking from both of those heads. Both being concerned about our city as an attorney and also as a citizen. First, bravo to City Councilman Matt Carlucci for his stand on the proposed ordinance of Rory Diamond. I agree, we have to have heart. We have to, in order for us to survive. I want to echo the sentiments of my neighbor, Dr. Nancy Stotts, and her point of view with regard to Rory Diamond's bill that I really oppose. And as a lawyer, I'm very concerned about targeting people who live in public housing, who are in the country illegally. They have some privacy rights, and this almost is an entrapment situation to get them in their home because they live there. Now, I share opposition to illegal immigration, but I think there are going to be other ways and legal ways to root out illegal immigration rather than going into their homes or into the schools. Second, I was also concerned with Councilman Ron Salem's suggestion and perhaps an ordinance that the city of Jacksonville is thinking about having a Doge agency. You know, most of our citizens in this country, even among the 49% who voted for our president, don't really like what's happening with Doge. And we see our governor copycatting Doge to start seeing where we can cut. We don't want our city to be copycatting Doge. And although, yes, President Trump won in Jacksonville, but in Duval County, it was one of the narrowest margins that the Republicans won in Duval County. We don't need to be trimming. Yes, the various agencies and committees can be looking at waste. I don't want waste. I live in an area of Atlantic Beach that has one of the highest property taxes. But I want to pay my taxes to support schools, to support needy people. We need to expand revenues, not cut. Let's be the bold new city of the South, not the bold old city. than he used to be. Thank you.
May I respond?
Sure.
Since my name came up. I never use the word agency for Doge. It will be an internal process that needs to get the buy-in of my colleagues, where we do go after waste and abuse, duplication in services.
But let's don't call it Doge.
Yeah, definitely.
Ms. Isser, we're looking at deficits of $70 to $100 million over the next 3 years in this government. We have to find ways to reduce the size of our government. We can't pay for it. So that's the purpose of that. And it won't be an agency. It will all be done internally. I need to get the buy-in of my colleagues. And let me address your immigration issue, because this, what I may say may not be very popular. I think you know I'm of Middle Eastern descent. My grandfather came over in the early 1900s through Ellis Island, fought in World War I. My parents came over separately in the late 1940s through Ellis Island. There were people there that helped them, and they eventually migrated to Jacksonville. Okay, so I'm very sensitive to this, because my whole family, the whole Ramallah community here in Jacksonville, all came from one little town in the Middle East, and there's 5,000 of us living here. But I also believe we have to have a country of borders. We can't let everybody just walk into our country. We don't have a country anymore. So there needs to be, and I know Sheriff Waters extremely well. He's not going to walk into our schools and grab people. He's not going to walk in, you know. So I would just caution you and let the process work out. The Carrico bill that came up is going to go through committees and be discussed. It's just been introduced. I don't know a whole lot about it. I don't know a whole lot about Rory's bill either. Pardon me? It's a good one. It's a good one. It just got introduced. So there'll be ample time where it goes through committees and discussed, and we'll work through it. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ron. I know how sincere Ron is, and I have a family story a little bit like Ron's, because my family came over from Rory, Italy, through Ellis Island. And so I have deep Italian roots, although I don't have much Italian color to me. What I want to say, though, we do have a deficit that is forecasted in our budget. And I don't want to talk too much about the garbage fee, because I have talked, my wife is so glad that issue is over for the time being. But the council members that stepped up and supported the garbage fee increase, that will eventually put that was a $40 million fund. And those dollars will go back into the general fund, and those dollars of the general fund will then be available to the beaches. And that was what the unfairness about it was, in addition to an accounting problem with our own budgetary. We hadn't changed that fee for 15 years because, I don't know why, but sometimes you just got to have the political will, and there's some council members up here that really stood strong with me, and I want to thank them for that, particularly Councilmember Miller. So it's not just about cutting, it's about making things right, doing things the right way. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, and since you brought up the garbage fee again, I'll talk about why I voted no on the garbage fee increase. First of all, I applaud my colleague Matt Carlucci for running with that and making it happen. It was a tough bill to pass. It only passed 12-7. I was on the 7 side, and I think a number of us here were on the 7 side. But my thoughts were, let's not ask people to pay more out of their wallets until we've cut out all the waste and inefficiency in the current government. So I came to the meeting when we voted, and I presented the last 7 years of the city's budget. So I looked at 2017 to 2024, and I looked at the level of inflation, which is about 4%, the level of population growth, which is about 2%, and I said if there's a city department or other spend area that grew 6% or under, then it's growing efficiently and commensurately with city growth and inflation. If it was growing over 6%, then it was probably growing excessively unless there's a good reason for it. What we found in that study, together with the council auditors, was that pretty much all the city departments, believe it or not, were below a 6% growth. So we're growing planning at the city of Jacksonville, we're growing parks, we're growing finance and IT at a level below the population growth and inflation growth. But what was wildly above were all of our non-departmental spend. So things like spending on nonprofits in the city through public service grants or cultural council grants or free roofs or down payment assistance, spending on incentives, something that I'm generally in favor of when we have the money. And I found that we had over $120 million more on that kind of spend in the fiscal year 24 budget than we did in the fiscal year 17 budget. So before you ask my opinion, people to open up their wallet and give more, I thought it was incumbent upon us as city council people who have controlled the purse to make sure we cut out the waste first. And it is a tough job, but I think we've got to be doing it now. Even with that garbage increase fee passing, we still have to focus on making sure we cut out any excessive spend and waste. And I think whether we have Doge or not, you'll find that the next finance committee, because of the financial headwinds that Ron referred to that we will be facing, will probably be pretty aggressive in making sure that we deliver core city services, but we look very carefully at anything beyond that.
Hi, Corey Byland, Mayor of Neptune Beach, and I'm going to come up front so I can get a good look at you when I'm talking to you. You know, Mr. Diamond and I have been in touch, and he knows that I have a very long laundry list of things that we're asking for the beaches. Everybody talks about how we are paying about 11% of the tax and we're only 3% of the population, and it's a message that bears repeating. So we do need to get some of those tax dollars back over the ditch to us, especially in light of the garbage fee, and I do appreciate, you know, the new legislation on that. But I want to talk about, sorry, Sandy.
The camera, you're standing in front.
I know, that's why I just said, sorry, Sandy. You were getting my best side. All right. So, you know, I want to talk a little bit about the homeless problem because I could go on and on and on. But there was this meeting that we had in December, and it was about the homeless. And it was about the rollout of the two programs, Homeward Bound and Paths. And we were told that we were going to be included in those programs. The Homeward Bound was to send people back to wherever they came from, and Paths was a way for our homeless to be brought to the places where they can receive services. We do not have overnight shelters here at the beaches. I've had a couple of meetings with the mayor's office on this issue. And I don't know where we are as far as a resolution, and I'd like to hear from you, because what I was told in the first meeting was that Jacksonville didn't have jurisdiction out here at the beaches. And I said, wait, I don't think you know what jurisdiction means. Duval County encompasses the beaches. So by our second meeting, I kind of feel that they understood what jurisdiction meant a little bit, and I don't really appreciate people talking to me about jurisdiction when they don't know what jurisdiction means. We are in Duval County's jurisdiction. We pay a lot of tax money. We deserve to be part of these programs. So I really want to hear what the city and city council is doing to make us a part of these programs, Paths, and Homeward Bound. Thank you.
May I speak?
Yes, please.
What you're describing, well, first of all, I think I've been very involved in PATH, and I think the Homeward Bound program has been very effective. The issue that you're bringing up is an issue with the administration. I can assure you, Councilmember Diamond, for the last 6 weeks, on 2-week intervals in finance, because I'm chair and he's a member of that committee, when the administration is sitting there, has asked them, where are we with this process? we'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll have an answer for you. 2 weeks later, he asked the same question. I had the representative from the mayor's office leave the meeting, get on the phone, because I felt that we needed to get an answer. They came back and said, we'll definitely come back in 2 weeks and have an answer for you. 2 days ago, same issue, person sitting there, no answer. So I'm as frustrated as you are trying to see what the administration is going to do to help the beaches and get through this issue of jurisdiction or whatever it may be. So I can assure you, Councilmember Diamond is pushing it, and I'm trying to do everything I can to help him. And if I can address your other issue, and I probably will get in trouble when I say this because I represent the beaches, and Councilmember Diamond and I have had this argument about how many dollars are coming this way versus the beaches. We have a jail, and we have a courthouse that we pay for. Those are very expensive propositions. So you have to keep in mind some of those huge expenses that are on the other side of the ditch that are not, and that you use, and you send your inmates, and you all come to our courthouse. It costs several $100 million. So just keep in mind those type of huge expenses that are out there that you use the other side for.
That we pay for.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Carlucci.
Thank you. Well, again, I'm kind of in the minority here, but I'm just going to say what I know and I believe. The jurisdiction of consolidated government that I know a little bit about is for all of Jacksonville, including the beaches. There are some agreements in our interlocal agreements that we have that do have some limitations, and those were negotiated out. But when Mayor Deegan brought our budget before us, there was $10 million, and it was out of reserves, for affordable housing and $10 million for a homeless project that would have been all Duval County inclusive. And I know that because I did my homework. The council voted that out of the budget because it was reserves and those dollars were only supposed to be used for storms and so forth. But I just have to tell you that it wasn't long ago that the council used $29 million out of reserves to pay for a waste hauler contract that was far and above what the council auditors and the mayor's office rate committee had put together what would be a reasonable raise for Meridian, who does a very good job. And so I just think that we do a lot of talking in city council about affordable housing. And we do a lot of talking about the homeless. We had a chance to do something with it, and we didn't because we can't touch reserves. But then when it came to Meridian, well, we did. And I just think that, and we put $70 million more in reserves in the previous year's budget than what had been put in a long time. And we're so far above what we need to be in our reserves. And I thought it was a reasonable investment to use towards the homeless issue in Jacksonville and in Duval County. And that includes Baldwin, the beaches, and everything in between. And I'm just telling you like it is from my core. Thank you.
Okay, respectful of time, so we're about 8:15. I know we started late, but I will take one more question. This gentleman's had his hand up since the beginning. So.
Yeah, I'm Casey Bowman from Jackson Beach. I would just like to know the status of public transportation in Jacksonville.
All of it?
Yeah.
You want it? Let me sit here. So I've been a pretty big critic of JTA in Jacksonville. If you look around the beaches, most of our bus stops don't have shade, and the buses come so rarely that it's not really an efficient way to get downtown or to the south side, anywhere you need to get. If you don't have a car and you live at the beaches, you're staying at the beaches. You're on the island, right?
And a lot of people mention traffic is a problem.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, right? Traffic, and that's just going to get worse, not better. But let me say this. There's a plan right now to spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars on a Essentially, train to nowhere, an unmanned vehicle on the trains downtown that people already know quite a bit. And now they want to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars with technology that doesn't exist, and for a budget that doesn't exist, and no timetable. And I had been saying, we can't do this. Let's just have really good buses in Jacksonville. Let's spend our money on Penman Road, making a nice clean road that's easier to get across both sides. Let's help kids get to and from school. And I understand with fewer of the islands in the middle, fewer little crazy things on Penman, just like our normal road. I know, Sandy, we're doing our best. We're listening to folks. But there's a problem downtown in Jacksonville where they love to spend money downtown. And things like that, just getting your buses covered, the bus stops covered. We're getting more regular service out here. It's harder and harder. And so we need to stop the craziness.
It's a part of it. I mean, you're going to put a university downtown. There are going to be kids not driving. There's housing going in on the west side.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a commuter area. And commuter areas need every transportation.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And if nothing else, we should at least get the blocking and tackling of government done right. So pick up the trash, police and fire, and deal with transportation. Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Marie.
Thank you. Okay, so that's all we have for tonight. If it didn't get to your
Say one wrap up.
wrap
All
up.
right. Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing. I've been on council now 3 years, and one of the things that I'm most impressed with is we can have disagreements on this council, and there's probably these two right here might be one of the pairs that vote more opposite than other pairs. But after we vote, it's really wonderful to watch council when that happens, because no one is getting angry at each other. We all support each other. It's a very cohesive group of 19 people, and you wouldn't think it would be, because these are 19 distinct personalities who all got onto this council in a unique and different way. But I've been really impressed in the last several years in particular about how well we work together, even when we have contentious votes, and how well we as a body get along. So, I mean, as you look right now, there could be squabbling between Republicans and Democrats in DC. There was recently squabbling between Republicans and Republicans in Tallahassee. There's not a lot of squabbling going on outside of just strictly policy opinions on our city council, and I think it's a pretty impressive thing. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. And you can see it here in this discussion.
Thank you for that, Nick. So just a quick announcements to wrap up the meeting. Next month is our meeting with the school board, our superintendent, and our school board representative, April 2nd, day after April Fool's Day. The joke is the library will be open, unlike tonight. So again, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you, gentlemen, for your help in getting us so that we could finally have this meeting. I did announce earlier, but I wanted to let you know, Terrence Freeman, who is our 5th at-large city councilman, was invited. Unfortunately, he had a conflict, which is why he is not here tonight. Otherwise, he would have been here as well. My third announcement is, I know you helped to take the chairs down, but if you could help, if you're able to put the chairs back, we can get out much quicker. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.